go for our very first intro. Ladies and gentlemen, go well now for Gina Maffey and Lady McQueen.
Hello. I'm Gina, and I look at how we manage deer in Scotland. Now, as you'll have seen from the flyers on your table, this means that I get to have a lot of wordplay at conferences. I've been known to give talks on, oh dear, that's the problem, and I don't know, I've no idea. And my personal favourite, so dear, let's talk about the birds and the bees. But the problem is that the nature of my research is interdisciplinary. So I often find myself sitting on the fence. And I'm usually on the wrong side of the fence to the people that I'm talking to. So if I talk to social scientists and I talk about a project that I'm working on, I get questions like, what do you mean you're writing your project without a long, complex theoretical framework to justify your philosophical thinking? Whereas if I talk to ecologists, I get questions like, where are the numbers? Where are the numbers? But with funding calls increasingly looking towards interdisciplinary research, how does someone end up sitting on the fence? Well, my journey started not in science, but in literature, and not just literature, but drama. Yes, I am a drama school reject. I am a failed thespian. I am an introverted extrovert. I spent a year learning scripts. I spent a year finding the emotional attachment to my character. And most importantly for my later career, I spent a year learning how to imitate a vulture. But when I finished at drama school, my parents put increasing pressure on me to start looking for a real career. So I sat down one evening with my mum and a large bottle of wine, and she came up with suggestions like, what about theatre studies? No, I cried. University is not a certified drama school. Okay, English then. 3 years reading books. I didn't want to read them, I wanted to live them. This discussion got more and more heated as we talked about it. And eventually I grabbed the bottle of wine and angrily shouted at my mother, well, what's the last course on this stupid list anyway? Zoology. Zoology? Ah. Well, that was actually quite interesting. I could go forth and spend 3 years learning about Darwin and genetics and taxonomy, and if all else fails, I could spend 3 years imitating my childhood hero, Sir David Attenborough. Indeed. Unfortunately, when I started studying zoology, I found out that this was everyone else's intention as well. If you go to a party with a room full of zoologists and you ask the question, what inspired you to study zoology? You get a lot of answers that resemble, well, I just got so excited as a child watching the David Attenborough series, and I just want to be him and walk through the jungle saying, and here we are in the Amazon rainforest. So, I confess, during my undergraduate, I cheated on David. I became a Steve Irwin fan. However, what this meant was I instead spent my afternoons sneaking up on wildlife, saying things like, well, we've got to be careful because these wallabies, they box. Now with these newfound skills, I started looking at PhDs. Unfortunately, I didn't get PhD funding, but my supervisor suggested that a master's might be a good idea. But where? Well, Exeter had a course that was split between Africa and the UK. York had one of the finest departments going. And Aberdeen, well, Aberdeen had a polar bear. On the front page of its website, it had a man standing over a polar bear. That was the course for me. So I headed up to Aberdeen and I had dreams of excursions across Africa and expeditions to Indonesia, and I ended up working on deer in Scotland. In fact, not even deer, I worked on ticks on deer in Scotland. So for my master's project, I spent my days walking up and down a mountain, carrying a blanket behind me to pick up ticks so that I could count them. But while doing this project, the professor in charge of it suggested that actually I might be able to combine these ecological skills and my previous life and come together in one project. And he suggested that I might like to start interviewing people about the problems we have with deer. So now, I sit and I use my vulture impression to emphatically listen to people about the problems they're having with deer on their estates. But the problem is that when I arrive at estates, I have no idea what mind frame the owners have. And I quite commonly get greeted with comments like, "Ah, you're the science lady. Now, tell me, climate change, load of bollocks, isn't it?" But that, I'm afraid, is a completely different story.